Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started by just welcoming all of you guys back. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Welcome to our class today. I know typically we start with meditation when we first start the class, but today what I'm going to do is I'm going to start teaching you first, and then we're going to do the meditation afterwards, because there's a new meditation that some of you may not have learned with me yet. And once I teach you this, then we'll actually do the meditation together. This is loving kindness meditation that I'm going to teach you guys. And let me just switch over to some visual aids here so the folks online can actually see what I'm describing. Okay, there we go. So the loving kindness meditation is a technique that's going to rewire the mind to eliminate your anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, even negative self-talk in the mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how to do this meditation, and even sharing with you some of the words of the Buddha so you can have confidence that the Buddha actually taught loving kindness meditation. There's essentially 4 meditations that the Buddha taught, and each of them have certain goals of things that you're eliminating from the mind, certain unwholesome qualities, and certain wholesome qualities that you're cultivating in the mind. This is what you're doing on the path to enlightenment, is you're purifying the mind by eliminating unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. As I shared yesterday, you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment, so you need more than just meditation, but meditation is an important component of your practice. The Buddha prioritizes breathing mindfulness meditation as a top priority, and then loving kindness meditation as a second one in terms of meditations and cultivating the mind. He talks about breathing mindfulness meditation as the highest quality of Dhamma that you could produce. And loving kindness meditation, doing that would be the second highest quality of Dhamma, because by practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, you're knocking down your cravings, desires, attachments, you're eliminating those. And that means that your mind isn't going to be out there longing, yearning, and chasing after things and causing harm in the world based on cravings, desires, attachments. So that's producing the best quality of Dhamma for you. And you're cultivating mindfulness and concentration as part of that practice. That's the wholesome qualities that you need in day-to-day life, so that when you observe discontentedness arising as a bodily sensation, you can cut it off and let it go if you've been training your mind in breathing mindfulness meditation. Then there's loving kindness meditation, which I'm going to teach you now, which, like as I mentioned, eliminates the anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions, even negative self-talk. If you have this inner dialogue where you're constantly degrading or diminishing yourself, this meditation will help you transform that. And it's arising loving kindness, or this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, this active goodwill towards all beings. There's other meditations as well that I share with students at different times in their journey to enlightenment, and these are specialized meditations that not everyone's going to actually need. In order to get to enlightenment, everyone's going to need breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. Because of what I taught you yesterday afternoon about the 3 poisons, the 3 unwholesome roots, every unenlightened mind has craving, anger, and ignorance. So they're going to need breathing mindfulness meditation to eliminate craving, as well as generosity. They're going to need loving kindness meditation to eliminate anger, and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life through your intention, speech, and actions. And then you're going to need to investigate and examine the teachings to eliminate the ignorance or unknowing of true reality by cultivating wisdom. So this other 2 meditations of eliminating sexual cravings and realizing non-self, some people will need those and some people won't. If someone's interested in eliminating sexual cravings, that can be accomplished without meditation, but there's a meditation that can help you to accomplish that. So if somebody has multiple girlfriends or boyfriends, or maybe they're trying to bring it down to just one person, they could use this, right? Or if they were having a relationship with one person, and that person and them have decided that they're no longer going to have sexual contact, they could use this meditation to completely eliminate their sexual cravings. So this is one meditation that I teach at different times. And then there's a meditation to help you realize non-self, but there's other things that you can do as well in addition to this that helps you to realize non-self. But this is one added thing that you can do if you would like to. So today we're going to focus on this meditation, the loving kindness meditation. So first, let's talk about what loving kindness is. In Pali, some people refer to this as metta. You might hear people refer to it this way. What it is it's active goodwill towards all beings without judgment, where you're not judging others and trying to decide, do they deserve my loving kindness or not? Sometimes this is what we're taught, is that I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Well, if everybody was practicing that, nobody would be respecting anybody. right? The Buddha is giving you a practice that everybody can practice. So if everybody was reserving their respect until somebody else respected you first, if everybody was practicing that, nobody would be respecting anybody. And the same thing with loving kindness. If everybody was judging others and saying, well, I'm not going to give you my loving kindness until you give me your loving kindness, right? Nobody would be having loving kindness for anybody, right? So you're not interested in judging others to determine whether they deserve your loving kindness. You're just interested in breaking through the wall and then practicing loving kindness, where you can have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, this active goodwill towards others. This is the antidote, or the wholesome root, or the remedy to this anger, hatred, and ill will. You're going to eliminate the harshness, the bitterness, the hostility, the resentment in the mind. That's what this meditation is doing. It's essentially rewiring your mind. You're like filling up your gas tank so that you can go out into the world and be more loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. And it's one of the Brahma Viharas, which we're going to be talking about this afternoon as part of the Brahma Viharas, or the 4 healthy mental states. This is one of those that are going to antidote certain symptoms in the mind, and I'm kind of describing some of those to you now. Then in terms of what the Buddha has taught around loving kindness, there's lots of teachings that he's taught, but here's just a few to help you see what he's talking about with loving kindness. If you remember back to right intention, which I taught yesterday, right intention from the Eightfold Path, which the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. Under right intention, you saw the intention of renunciation, which is the willingness to give up and let go, get rid of those false beliefs and bring in wisdom, having an open mind. But then you have the intention of non-ill will. The intention of non-ill will is the same thing as goodwill. So if loving kindness is goodwill, then intention of non-ill will is to have the intention of loving kindness, or the intention of goodwill. And then you have the intention of harmlessness, right? But how could you practice the intention of non-ill will or goodwill if you didn't have a technique to actually produce it? So that's what the loving kindness meditation is doing, is helping you to develop the thinking or the thought or the intention of goodwill towards all beings. And then if you remember the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, which this is the way that you can have very wholesome relationships and harmonious relationships by practicing right speech and all the other factors on the Eightfold Path. The 5th factor is speaking with a mind of loving kindness. The opposite of that would be speaking with a mind of inner hate. If you had a mind of inner hate when you're speaking, that's what's going to come out, and it's going to produce unwholesome results, because whatever you put out, it's going to come back to you. So you're going to need to be able to practice where you're speaking with a mind of loving kindness. But again, how could you do that if you didn't have a technique in order to cultivate it and develop it in your mind so that then you could practice it through your speech? Here's something that the Buddha is teaching here, where prior to this, he was talking to his ordained practitioners, and he was teaching them the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And he was teaching them to speak at the right time, what you say is true, speak gentle, speak beneficially, and speak with a mind of loving kindness. And he was reminding them that even though you're speaking this way, other people are going to speak the opposite. Other people are going to speak at the improper time. Other people are going to speak falsehoods. Other people are going to speak harsh. Other people are going to speak unbeneficially. Other people are going to speak with a mind of inner hate. And he says, okay, when this occurs, when people are speaking to you untimely, when they're speaking to you falsehoods, harshly, when they're speaking unbeneficially with a mind of inner hate, he gets to this. He says, herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. We shall utter no evil words. We shall reside compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. We shall reside enveloping that person with a mind filled with loving kindness, and starting with him, we shall reside enveloping the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, abundant, joyful, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train, monks. So he's saying, remain unaffected. You need to be able to train your mind where you don't have a craving or an expectation for other people to treat you in a certain way. If you have an expectation of how people should function or how they should act, you'll be frustrated when they don't do the things that you want them to do. And now if they're talking to you bitter or harsh or hostile or resentful or anything like this, you're going to talk back to them, perhaps if you didn't know this practice and you weren't practicing in that same way. And this is just going to keep the argument going. This is going to keep the hostility and the bitterness going. But instead, you're going to need to transform your mind and do something different. That when people are being bitter and harsh and hostile with you, you can either walk away, you can ignore it. But what you're interested in doing is remaining with the mind unaffected and just have compassion and loving kindness for this person who's struggling with their own internal challenges, right? So you can remain unaffected if you train your mind not to expect or have cravings of people to be a certain way. But again, how could you have this loving kindness with your mind filled and permeating with loving kindness if you didn't have a technique of how to do that? So that's what the Buddha is teaching you with loving kindness meditation. Here's some more words from the Buddha, specifically on loving kindness meditation. This first one, he's talking to his son, Rahula. Sometimes people think that the Buddha left his family and never came back. This isn't actually true. He left for 6 years in order to train his mind to get to enlightenment, but then he ends up coming back to the area where his family was, and his wife, his son, his stepmother, a lot of his cousins and people like this started ordaining with him. So he was around his family, and his son actually got to enlightenment. His wife got to enlightenment. His stepmother got to enlightenment. All these people were getting to enlightenment. So here he's teaching his son Rahula. He says, Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness. For when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. This is how a Buddha speaks. Very clear, very concise, very precise. You don't have to interpret that. You don't have to figure out what he means. He's just explaining to you, what did he do to get rid of this ill will? He practiced loving kindness meditation, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have any anger, hatred, ill will, even the slightest dislike towards another being. And the way that he accomplished that is through loving kindness meditation. So that's why he's sharing it and helping people to understand what it takes to get to that enlightened mental state and eliminate this anger. It's loving kindness meditation. So he's just very clear, very direct, very concise, and very precise about how he's teaching. And then here's another one. He says, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. Very clear, very concise, very direct. And then here's another one. He says, or let me tell you what, to set this up. So the Buddha was teaching during that lifetime, and there were other students there were other teachers who were teaching as well. And these other teachers were claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. And the Buddha knew that it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. And there were various students that were studying with him, and there were various students that were studying with other teachers. And sometimes the students of the Buddha would get together with students of other teachers, and they would sometimes eat their food together and talk and kind of compare notes of what one teacher was teaching versus another. People do that even today, right? They kind of get together and talk about what they've learned in different places. So when these people would congregate, when the students would congregate, they would kind of compare notes and share what their teachers were teaching them. So the Buddha is sharing with his students. He says, suppose they ask, meaning those other students from other teachers, but what, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned? You should answer, the liberation of the mind by loving kindness. For one who attends carefully to the liberation of the mind by loving kindness, unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. This, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. So, like right now, you're not angry, I don't think, right? You're maybe just sitting there. You just woke up. Maybe you're just like, okay, well, it's a new day. You're not angry. So you have unarisen anger. There's anger in your mind. If something happens, your anger will arise. That's because you have the mental object of ill will. If you have a certain craving that gets triggered, this anger is going to arise. So the Buddha is saying the way to make sure that that anger doesn't arise is to practice loving kindness, right? And then any anger that has arisen, he's saying the way to get rid of that is to practice loving kindness. So if you're angry at any particular time, you need to know the antidote is loving kindness and bring in this active goodwill. So say you're at home and say you're hanging out with your mom and say something happens and now you're angry at something mom did. You should have your mindfulness to know that the mind's angry and right away bring in the loving kindness, because that's what's going to antidote it and fix it. That's going to transform the mind. So that's arisen anger, that the anger has already arisen. But there's also this mental object of ill will that you got to break up. It's kind of like taking a jackhammer to it. That's what the loving kindness meditation is doing. Is it's like taking a jackhammer to this ill will, this mental object, and you're breaking it up so that now you can clear it out of the mind and purify the mind of this mental object of ill will, because that can arise at any time. And when it does, that's where you may become unskillful in your intention, speech, and actions, and now you damage your relationships. This is what we've all done at different times as we've had anger and hostility and bitterness and resentment come up in the mind. You've been harsh and hostile and bitter towards others through your intention, speech, and actions, and you damage relationships, or maybe the relationship ended because of that. So this is what you're looking to get rid of so that you can have harmonious relationships. One of the things you need to do is transform the mind and get rid of the anger, hatred, and ill will so that now you can be more loving and kind in all your relationships. And by you doing that, that's what will improve your relationships and create more and more harmonious relationships, because now you're only being loving and kind in your relationships. You're not doing things that are causing harm to others, because as long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile and argumentative to others, that's what's going to come back to you. Okay? So this is the Buddha explaining that to you. Now, in terms of, or actually, let me back up before I explain to you how to do it. Any questions on anything that I've shared so far? Those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand and ask any questions that you like in Zoom. Do you guys have any questions on what I've been sharing? All right, let me check online. Oh, you have a question? Go ahead, Doche.
I was wondering if the compassion, the other Brahmavihara, does that also help with ill will? Like maybe meditating on compassion for beings in addition? Or?
This helps with indifference, and it also helps with worry, because the mind will typically be on one side or the other, where the mind's worrying about the world and having, anxiety or fear for what may or may not happen in the world. But then the other side of that is the mind's oftentimes indifferent and could care less what's happening. So the middle way is the compassion. So it doesn't help with the anger necessarily. It just helps you to have more concern for others, which you could say that, yeah, it helps a little bit with that, but it's really the loving kindness that's really targeting that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's that? Oh, you forgot your question? Okay, no worries. All right. So when you remember, you're welcome to ask. Okay, so now I'll share with you how to actually do loving kindness meditation before we do it. So just like with all the meditations that I do, I ease into meditation with the chanting. That helps you to bring some awareness of the mind, awareness of the breath, and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Then there's a period of time where you could do a brief session of breathing mindfulness meditation, just like 3 to 5 minutes. This kind of prepares the mind for loving kindness, because you're starting to focus on the breath. You're kind of establishing your breath, focusing the mind on that, bringing some awareness of mind to the breath, and so forth and so on. And now after about 3 to 5 minutes of breathing mindfulness meditation, you can move into the loving kindness meditation. And you'll hear me doing this affirmations. These affirmations are something that you repeat inside the mind. You start with, may I be peaceful. And you do this on the out breath. And what an affirmation is you're just repeating it inside the mind. You'll hear me saying it out loud because I'm guiding you guys. But if I was doing this on my own, I would just do it quietly within my own mind. So that's what you'll end up doing. So I'll say, may I be peaceful. And then I'll breathe in. And then may I be safe. And whenever you get to your next out breath, you just repeat, may I be safe inside the mind. Then may I be well. And then may I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. So you start with this being who you are. Then you create these successive rings that get wider and wider and wider. Here I'm just putting 3 on here just for learning purposes, but you're going to need to put probably about 6, as many as probably 8, not more than that. And you're going to need to customize this for yourself. There are certain people that you have anger towards. There are certain people that you have loving kindness towards, right? And you would like to include some of these into your meditation. The way that some people like to structure this is They will do like a ring or two of people you already have loving kindness for, so that you can kind of bubble up your loving kindness. Then you do like a ring or two of people you're more neutral about, maybe like a neighbor or a coworker or something like that, to kind of bubble over the loving kindness into that person or that group. And then you include a couple of people that you do have anger towards, that you do have hatred towards. And then the very last ring is all beings. You're not interested in leaving anyone out. So while I'm going to do this with you guys, and I'm going to be doing these generalized statements, you'll hear me talk about like mom and dad, or friends and family, or things like this, or people who have caused harm and things like this. When you do this on your own, you would like to have, if you have anger towards Bob, you would like to say, may Bob be peaceful, right? And you would like to include Bob in your meditation. You're not trying to change Bob. You're not trying to do anything. You can't change Bob through your meditation. It's not possible. But you're putting Bob in your meditation because you're trying to transform your mind. So that now, having transformed your mind, when you're around Bob, you'll be more loving and kind. As you slowly do this each day, you'll be more loving and kind when you're around Bob. And this is what will transform your relationship. So you can include people that are currently in your life, but you can also include people that aren't in your life any longer. Even if they're dead and you'll never see them again, if your mind is holding on to any anger, hatred, and ill will, your mind's not going to be liberated. You're going to need to get rid of all your anger, hatred, and ill will. Sometimes we hold on to resentment towards others, and we think that we're getting back at that person by holding on to the resentment, but you're actually not getting back at them. This is actually like holding on to a hot coal in your hand, and you're trying to burn them. But they're not getting burned. You're the one getting burned because you're holding on to this resentment. So you would like to free the mind of this anger, hatred, ill will, this hostility and bitterness and resentment. So you're going to need to have these, 6 or 8 rings where you're doing this on a consistent basis. And in the morning is really helpful to do this meditation because you go out into the world being more loving and kind in your entire day. Doesn't mean you can't do it in the middle of the day or in the evening, because you surely can. But the morning is an ideal time to do loving kindness meditation, because you enter out into the world with more loving kindness in your mind, and now you can be more loving and kind in your day-to-day life. So you're doing these affirmations that you would like to customize for your specific needs. And you might have people in your meditation for a period of weeks or months, and then you might move other people into this. When I first started doing these types of practices, I had a lot of negative self-talk within my own mind, and I had a lot of resentment towards my mom. So my loving kindness meditation when I first started was, may I be peaceful, safe, well, free of discontentedness. And I would do myself actually 2 or 3 times, a ring for this being 2 or 3 times. Then I would go to mom, and I would do her 2 or 3 times. And then I would go to all beings, and then I was done. Right? And I did this for a long time to wear away that resentment and hostility. But then there'd be certain things, because at that time I was in business. Maybe there was something going on with an employee or a customer. One time I had the landlord of where I was renting one of my businesses come in and threaten to kill me in front of my employees, in front of my customers, up in my face, yelling and hollering at me, threatening to kill me. He was in my meditation for a little while. I didn't feel any anger towards him, but just to make sure that there wasn't any. Or say I was on my way to work and someone cut me off in traffic, right? Okay, maybe there was some anger that might have arisen. So I would put that person in the meditation for 2 or 3 days or so. And I didn't even know their name. I would just say, may that person who cut me off in traffic be peaceful, right? Training the mind to not hold on to any kind of anger or hostility. So your meditation with loving kindness is going to change over time. You're going to put different people in and out of your meditation, and you would like to put someone in there for a good long while, right? If you have a lot of hostility or anger built up towards a certain person, it's not going to be one session and it's gone. And it might not even be 2 or 3 or 1 week or 1 month. Like you heard with my mom, it took me a good 6 months to really wear this away. So you're going to need to have people in your meditation for extended periods of time. And even in some situations where I didn't have any anger, like the landlord, I put him in there just in case my mind wasn't seeing the anger and somehow it was buried in there and I didn't know it was there. I put him in there just in case, because I wasn't interested in my mind, holding on to any kind of anger. So you're going to be able to change this based on your specific needs. And you can make these rings based on individuals. You can use individuals, or you can use groups of individuals. Say you have hatred towards police or lawyers or doctors or some other group of people. You can do a group of people. You can say, may all police officers be peaceful. Right? So this will help you to get rid of that hatred towards a person or a group of people or an organization or something like this. Okay, so any questions on the meditation? Yes. And by the way, after the loving kindness affirmations, we go back to a little bit of breathing mindfulness meditation, and then we come out with some chanting. So it's kind of like a loving kindness sandwich where we've got loving kindness in the middle, right? And then the lettuce and tomato is the breathing mindfulness meditation. And then the bread is like the chanting, holding it all together. Okay. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So how does Buddha talk about how to loving kindness meditation?
So in the Pali Canon, we don't have any guidance on what the Buddha did exactly for loving kindness meditation. Because of 2,500 years of history, we know that what's in the Pali Canon is not 100% of what the Buddha taught. We have these references to loving kindness meditation, but there's nowhere that it shares exactly what he did for loving kindness meditation. And there's things like this. So while we have the Pali Canon, it doesn't have everything you need in order to get to enlightenment. And that's where a teacher comes in. So what you would like to do is find a teacher who has eliminated anger and hatred and ill will and all those lesser versions. And then whatever they're doing for loving kindness meditation, that's what's going to work for you. Because if it worked for them, it'll work for you. So that's why I share this, because I know this works 100%.
Okay, I haven't done loving kindness meditation enough to see its benefits, and so I feel like I have doubt there. Mm-hmm. And so how can I eliminate that? And also if you can share that, how long did you practice loving kindness meditation for it to work? Mm-hmm. It will be helpful, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's common for the mind to have doubt when you first get started, and even for a few years, because sometimes people haven't seen enough progress yet to convince them that, yes, these teachings are indeed leading to improved condition of mind. So loving kindness meditation, I know with 100% certainty works to eliminate anger. I was at a retreat 2 years ago, and the students asked me, when's the last time you got angry? And I told them, I don't know. I don't remember because it's been so long. And they said, well, what would your son say? And my son happened to be there, so he just happened to walk into the room at that time. So they asked him in front of all the students, like, when's the last time you saw your dad angry? And what he said was 2017. So up until 2017, I was doing loving kindness meditation, and I wasn't doing it too consistently because I wasn't really actively on the path as much as I was, once I got here to Thailand. So I started doing loving kindness meditation probably around, 2003 to 2005 time frame, but it wasn't like real consistent. But by the time, I got later in life, all the anger had been eliminated and I don't experience any anger any longer. So that's how I know that this meditation actually works. So as you gradually work with this, like I was giving the analogy yesterday, I don't know if you were here when I was I don't think you were here in the afternoon. I was talking about this, but I think you've heard me talk about it before, where the Buddha talks about this analogy of a digging tool, where it has a wooden handle. And each day as you're digging with this digging tool, you're wearing away some wood on the handle, and you're not going to know how much of the wood you're wearing away each day. But when it's completely exhausted and the handle needs to be replaced, you're going to know that. So it's the same thing, that each day you're not going to know how much anger and hatred you wear away with this meditation. But when it's completely gone, you'll know that. So when I stopped being angry with my mom, I knew that, okay, my anger in this relationship had been extinguished. But it wasn't extinguished fully, because I would still get angry with my wife, or I would still get angry with somebody else, right? So what you'll notice is that you'll kind of clean up your mind, and it'll be kind of like patchwork, where like some relationships you might not have anger. Like, I don't think you've ever gotten angry with me, but maybe with your brother or your mom, you still get angry because you have attachment there. So you'll notice that you'll kind of clean up different parts of your life until it's all encompassing, the way that the Buddha describes. And this is how you'll know that your mind is completely eliminated the anger, because you'll never see any more anger for an extended period of time.
I see, but as this meditation is very different from breathing mindfulness meditation, that's why I don't know how it will work on the mind when we are doing these affirmations. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what is, I guess it's my doubt. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I also had something else to ask. Yeah. So, is it true that without forgiveness, loving kindness could not be developed? So if there is no forgiveness for
It's on. It's still working.
yeah, so just that question that without forgiveness, can loving kindness still be practiced? Or do we need to do like forgiveness meditation or something of that kind of first, or doing loving kindness meditation?
There is no forgiveness in the way that the Buddha taught, in the way that you can understand that you don't need to forgive anybody for anything, because you're the one who's causing all your own discontent feelings. Oftentimes when we hold grudges, we think that this anger and resentment is being caused by someone else. And sometimes in other collection of teachings, we're taught to forgive that person. But this would be with wrong view, that if somebody thinks that this person needs to be forgiven for the anger or frustration in one's own mind, then this is not understanding that your own mind is causing these feelings. So there's no need to forgive anybody, because any uncomfortableness or anger or frustration that's within your own mind is being caused by your own mind. So there isn't any meditation for forgiveness. These are the 4 meditations that the Buddha taught that I shared at the beginning. And this loving kindness, while of course you have doubt now because you haven't practiced it enough, I have no doubt whatsoever that this meditation is what will lead to the elimination of the anger, hatred, and ill will in the mind. And that's why I teach it. And you just need to do enough of it in a determined, dedicated, and diligent way that you can see the results. But remember, it's not just the meditation. It's going out into the world and being loving and kind. That's what's going to ultimately transform the mind. It's rewiring the mind so that you're doing the meditation, but then you've got to go out into the world and apply all those factors of the Eightfold Path, that where you see anger coming up, you're cutting that off and letting it go, and then bringing in the loving kindness. So there's the meditation, yes, that's going to help you, but you need all those other factors of the Eightfold Path dialed in order to get rid of the anger, hatred, and ill will. I saw some other people grab mics, so I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure the sequence.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I think I'm angry at a lot of people. Should I start my list small? What do you think is most effective?
Yeah, this is where like you should take like the 6 to 8, is usually what the mind can manage in one meditation. And there's different approaches here. The approach that I took is I went to the really difficult one, which was my mom. That's the one I had the most anger and hatred toward, and I went right to that one. Other people might go to something lesser, someone that's maybe you don't have as much anger towards, and maybe get some confidence and clear up your anger with that person within your own mind. And now you have confidence and you'll stay consistent with all the other things that you need to do to get rid of all the others. So you could take the person that you're the most angry at, or you could take people that you have the least amount of anger for, because those will be easier to release from the mind. But this needs to be done in concert with breathing mindfulness meditation, with generosity, because the whole reason why the mind is angry is because of its craving. So you're going to need to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments. So one of the things that I was able to get to with my mom is I stopped having expectations of her and wanting her to be a certain way. And I started practicing generosity with her too, so that I would be giving and sharing with her in addition to this. So it's not just meditating that's going to transform the mind. There's all these other components of your practice that you're going to need to integrate in order to fully eliminate the anger. Yeah, sure.
So, as I understand it right, I can do myself, and then I could right away choose people who I'm angry at. Because I did myself normally, then my parents, but I don't have so much anger, or I don't have anger at my parents right now, so I could right away go to people I'm angry at.
Sure. Yeah. So remember right effort from yesterday with the Eightfold Path, where with right effort, you're preventing unwholesome qualities from entering the mind. You're eliminating unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. you're bringing in certain wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, and then you're supporting and encouraging certain wholesome qualities that currently exist in your mind, right? So there, you can apply this to your loving kindness meditation, that there's certain people you currently have loving kindness for. It's not maybe fully developed because you do maybe get agitated or annoyed or frustrated with those people from time to time, but nonetheless you have some loving kindness, maybe your brother or your parents. So you'd like to put them in perhaps after you do yourself, then you would like to maybe include them as like your second or third ring. Then people that you're more neutral about, that you don't hate them, but you don't really love them either. They're just kind of more neutral about. But then people that you do have anger and hatred towards, you like to put a couple of rings of those people before you ultimately go to all beings. You're starting this with I, because you're not going to be able to have loving kindness for others if you don't have loving kindness for yourself. You need to have loving kindness for this being who you are. It always starts with that. So that's why you're starting with yourself, you're ending with all beings, and then in the middle, you could really structure it any way that you like. And I'm just giving you some guidance of things that you could potentially look at and try to work with. Because part of what this practice comes down to is not changing the teachings of the Buddha, but within something like this, within the structure of this, there's some flexibility and some customization that you can customize this. And that's where you need to be able to see what's working best for you. And for me, initially, it was doing myself 2 or 3 times, doing my mom 2 or 3 times, and then doing the all beings, because I had a lot of anger there and a lot of negative self-talk. And that's what I went towards right away. It was kind of like the squeaky wheel approach, right? If you have a shopping cart and you've got 4 different wheels on it, which one is squeaking the loudest? You got to put oil on that one first. So that's why I did that one first. But I was very confident that this would work, and I stuck with it, and I just kept going towards it, and slowly was easing this anger out of the mind. But like with you guys, you might decide to take something that you have, or a person that you have less anger towards. You might not be willing to approach that one that you have a lot of strong anger towards right now. So you've got to decide for yourself and then see it and test what works. What works for me, I know this meditation will work for you, but how you structure it is going to be up to you. And then you can see within that structure of what is working best.
Okay. So for example, I have 5 people I'm a bit angry at. And I would like to address all of them, but only should do 6 to 8 rings would be optimal. Mm-hmm. So in this case, I would maybe choose to do myself, but then right away go to these 5 people and end with, or would you say at the beginning it's not so smart to do that, because it's better you have an introduction into when you come to the people you are angry at.
Yeah, so again, what I just shared is you're going to need to decide for yourself, right? So one of the ways that you can do it is you could start with yourself and end with all beings. That's what I suggest for sure, that you do that. But then in that middle section, what a lot of people like to do is a couple of people that they currently have loving kindness for, a couple of people that they're more neutral about, and then a few people or a couple of people that they have anger towards. Putting all 5, like right from the beginning, you could try it. You're more than welcome to do that. That's your choice. What would work best? That's where you've got to see for yourself. You've got to practice, right? What works for me is this meditation, but then the structure of it and how you customize it, that's going to come down to you, and you're going to need to dabble with this and see what's working best.
And if I'm angry in a situation, and I would have the time to meditate, should I do it? Like I could go to my room and sit down and meditate. Would that be a good thing to do?
Yeah, so that's what the Buddha was saying, that any arisen anger can be eliminated and abandoned by practicing loving kindness. So say you're in the living room, you and mom are arguing, you could walk away from that, go to your room and do some loving kindness meditation. You could surely do that. And some people find that beneficial, but sometimes you might need to go for a walk first or ride a bike. So there's not like this one set permanent answer that says every time you're angry, go meditate. Right? That's not what you're interested in doing. You're interested in moving to this higher consciousness and be able to make wise decisions. The Buddha is not teaching you a decision tree that if this happens, do this. And if this happens, do this. That would be a permanent answer for every situation. You're going to need to observe your mind and see what would be best. So there's some situations where I was angry and I might have sat down and did some meditation like you're talking about. But there's other times where maybe I was so angry and so irate, the last thing I was thinking about was sitting down and being still, that I had to go outside and go for a bike ride or go for a drive or something like this. So you're going to need to make those decisions on your own based on the condition of your mind. And that's where moving to a higher consciousness and making wise decisions is part of this practice. And there's not going to be one permanent answer in these kinds of situations.
Okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
I want to say sometimes the parents you say it's not real. For example, now you see me, it's very peaceful and very quiet, but in fact, I always feel very nervous and happiness. I want to ask, like me, now, whether faith meditation, because I always feel, because you look me, it's very peaceful and anything is okay. But inside, I always feel very nervous and anxious. Yeah, but I don't know how to make me peaceful. Yes, exactly.
Sure. So this is what I taught yesterday. You weren't here yesterday, but it was recorded. So you could watch what I taught yesterday, which is the Eightfold Path. This is what you're going to need to learn in order to get to the peace and joy. This is a teaching of loving kindness meditation that plugs into what I taught yesterday. So you can go to our YouTube channel or Facebook page. In a matter of 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it'll be on our podcast as well. But I've taught it many times. It's called the Eightfold Path. There's books, there's audiobooks, there's videos. You're going to need to learn that inside and out. It takes about 2.5 hours for me to teach it, but you can access it from yesterday's class.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is loving kindness. Yes, for example, I'm from China, Shanghai, and I always busy. For my business, it's very, very busy. So I live alone. And some people see I have a lot of friends. Yes, every day I connect everyone. Yeah, for business, for my job. But in fact, I feel very lonely. Yeah, yes, because I live alone and my parents not live with me. And for example, like me, this situation, how is loving kindness? I think I situation like her, like that boy, because in that place I don't want to talk anyone my true think too much. I always think, oh, this is for job and this is for this, and even sometimes I feel very nervous and I'm very unhappy. I always smile like this. Yeah, so I don't know how to do this loving kindness.
We're going to do this together, so you'll get a chance to practice it. But you're going to need to understand the Eightfold Path. That's the real place to get started. So if you go back and you learn what I taught yesterday, that'll help you. And then I'm going to actually do this loving kindness meditation today with you guys.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any more? Yep.
Thank you, David. I understand that as independent practitioners, we can change the words a little bit, perhaps, if it works for us.
So this here where it says like, may I be peaceful, safe, well, free of discontentedness, these are what's called non-burdening statements where you're not trying to burden somebody. So if you were like, may mom be kind, like mom has to do something to be kind. And now you're waiting for mom to be kind before you practice your loving kindness meditation with her. And that's not what you're interested in doing. So you're interested in having statements like this: may mom be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. It's not any kind of judgment whatsoever. So some people do change these a little bit. Like sometimes when people are working on eliminating personal existence view, instead of saying, may I be peaceful, they will say, may this being be peaceful, or may Helena be peaceful. You can do that in your own mind. right? And you can even change like the peaceful, safe, well, free of discontentedness if you like, but you would like to have non-burdening statements so that you're not requiring somebody to do something before you'll practice loving kindness with them.
Okay, thank you. And what I had in mind particularly was dropping the last part, because for me, it works really well when I end with, may all beings be free of all discontentedness. Mm-hmm. It's okay, no? If I drop
you
it,
can leave it at that. Yeah, essentially what you're saying at the end is you're saying that last statement is may this being be enlightened. Because if they're free of discontentedness, they're going to be free of or they're going to be enlightened, right? So you're saying, like, may this being reach this peace and this joy that is the enlightened mental state.
Thank you, Teacher David.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Paul, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to ask how much time it takes, like the part of the mindful meditation. The loving kindness meditation.
If you do about 6 rings and you do it the way that I do with the chanting, the breathing mindfulness meditation, the loving kindness, breathing mindfulness, and back to the chanting, this is about 20 to 25 minutes. If you put about 8 rings in there, you're looking at about 30-minute meditation, and that's what you're building up to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see if we have anything online. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere else. So, all right, so what I'll do then is just invite you guys to do this together. As I mentioned, I'm going to use just very generalized affirmations that apply to all of us, but you're going to need to customize this. So I'm going to ease in with the chanting. I'll guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation. Then there's going to be a brief period where there's just quiet for about 3 minutes or so. And then we'll come in with the affirmations. And then after that, I'll go back to some breathing mindfulness and then back to the chanting. So you'll get a chance to experience the structure of this meditation, but then you're going to need to customize it on your own. Okay. So if you guys would like to join along, we have chants over there on the table. For those of you guys online, the chants are on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on the link that says free books, and then down towards the bottom, you'll see the daily chanting sheet or the one-page chanting sheet. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho วิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start focusing the mind on the breath, either the sound of the air coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Whenever you get to your next out breath, repeat these affirmations in the mind. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May Mom and Dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May my family and friends be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. May all beings be peaceful. all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness in the suffering it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโพตังมะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly ease the mind out of meditation. Okay, so just a couple of things to wrap up this topic. Is the breathing mindfulness meditation at the end of loving kindness meditation? What this is for is that sometimes when you're doing this loving kindness meditation, some anger might arise in the mind. You might notice this, and this is to kind of help you cut it off and let it go. There were times that before I started meditating, I didn't have any anger in the mind at that particular moment towards my mom. But then when I would go and do this meditation, it would start reminding me of the things that happened when I was a child and the things that I had anger towards my mom for. So some anger would bubble up in the mind. So that breathing mindfulness meditation on the backside, that's to cut that off and let it go so you can let it out of the mind and eliminate it. If you don't need that, you don't need to include it, because sometimes when you're doing this loving kindness meditation, you'll find that the loving kindness is permeating in the mind and it's coming up in the mind. And if that's the case, and that's where you're at the end of the loving kindness meditation, hey, just end it there, right? You don't have to do the breathing mindfulness meditation at the end. If you're developing loving kindness in the mind, this is unconditional love, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. You actually can't cut it off. So even if you tried to cut it off, you wouldn't be able to. So there's no harm in putting that breathing mindfulness meditation at the end, but that's there if you need it. The one at the beginning, it's really helpful to have that at the beginning because it kind of gets the mind set up for your loving kindness meditation. But at the one at the end, you decide for yourself whether you'd like to include that in there or not. Okay. What you're doing here is you're rewiring the mind so that you can be more loving and kind. So that when you interact with these individuals, or when thoughts of those individuals come up, maybe they're dead and long in the past, you don't have anger, hatred, and ill will in your mind. I'm 100% confident that this meditation will work for you, because if it worked for me, it'll work for you. I only teach things that I've already tested and I know from experience that they absolutely work. I wouldn't teach you something if it didn't work. I only teach you things that I know with 100% certainty that it works. So if you dedicate yourself to learning this and practicing it closely, you'll see that it'll gradually wear away your anger, your hatred, your ill will, and all those lesser versions, and the negative dialogue that might be in your own mind, the diminishing, degrading, negative self-talk. That's what it did for me, so I know it'll do it for you too, because if it did it for me, it will do it for you. But you're going to need to practice it. And that's why I suggest you do it in the morning, and then there's no harm in doing it in the middle of the day or the evening as well, because you're building up your practice to 2 or 3 sessions per day. And out of those 2 or 3 sessions, you'd like at least one of them to be breathing or to be loving kindness meditation. If you include 2 or 3 to be loving kindness, go for it. You could totally do that, particularly if you're going through a period of time where there's a significant amount of anger in the mind, or even any anger at all. You can really hit it multiple times in your day. But you'd like at least one of those sessions out of the 2 or 3 to be loving kindness meditation. This is what will transform your mind. But then you're going to need to go out in the world and be loving and kind. That's where the real work happens. The meditation is there to kind of fill up your gas tank, and then you go out into the world, and through your intention, speech, and actions, this is where you practice your loving kindness. And the Eightfold Path is what the Buddha shares with you of how to actually do that and how to accomplish it. And you're still going to need to apply right mindfulness and right effort from the Eightfold Path. That say you're out and about in your day and you are driving a car, and say somebody does come a little bit close and cut you off. You notice some anger starting to arise as a bodily sensation, cut that off and let it go. Right? And bring out this loving kindness. This loving kindness affirmations that you're doing during the meditation, you might even find yourself doing this in your day-to-day life. Where in the past, when I would have someone cut me off, I might lay on the horn, or I might start yelling and hollering. I might even give it a middle finger or two here and there, and probably more than that, right? That's might have been what I did in the past. But when I started doing this meditation, things changed. Right? When someone would cut me off, I'd be like, hey, brother, go ahead, have the lane. It's up to you, right? May you be well. Go ahead. May you be well. You might even hear yourself saying that in certain situations where you're on the phone and someone's being bitter, harsh, and hostile. You might get off the phone. May they be well. You might just think that in your mind, right? So this affirmations that you're doing in meditation, they will bubble over into your day-to-day life. And you're going to need to do that. You're going to need to practice being loving and kind through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. That's where the real work is happening. This is just going to facilitate you moving loving kindness into your day-to-day life. So you're going to need to practice being loving and kind in your day-to-day relationships. And that's what's going to transform your mind, and it's going to transform your relationships. And there's other things you're going to need to know in order to develop harmonious relationships, because that's what we're learning here in this course. But this is a key component of it, is understanding and learning and practicing loving kindness meditation on a consistent basis. So do you guys have any questions on this meditation? Anything we've been talking about? Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Is there anything significant about the order of peaceful, safe, well? Like, is there any significance? Is it building on anything, or is it like a random order? And was that taught, like, was this order taught by anybody? Is it in the Pali Canon? You know what I mean?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, you won't find anywhere in the Pali Canon that loving kindness meditation, exactly how the Buddha did it, is there, because 2,500 years of time impermanence has affected the Pali Canon. But this is what I did, and I know that this works, and this is the sequence and the ordering that I use. So this is how I know that this works.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. All right, so I'm not seeing anything else. So it's basically about 10:30. So let's take a 15-minute break, and we'll start up at 10:45. And what I'm going to teach you guys at 10:45 is the next part of the course, which is identifying cravings, cultivating non-craving, and analysis of the mind. This is where I'm going to teach you how to go in and surgically remove some of these cravings, desires, attachments, because what I've been teaching you so far in the Eightfold Path is how to generally train the mind to work towards eliminating cravings, desires, attachments. But you're going to need to develop this introspection and being able to look inward and trying to identify what is the exact craving, because breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity is providing this generalized training. But this technique that I'm going to teach you here is going to be able to help you put together a plan to go in and actually almost surgically remove it in about 80 or 90% of the cases. So enjoy your break, and then we'll come back together at 10:45 and I'll teach you guys this topic. Okay, so enjoy. Okay.